I'm Sam Stein, managing editor at the Bulwark, and I'm here to talk to you about what are alleged to be scam packs. All right, so what is a scam pack? Well, a scam pack is a political action committee that raises a lot of money, primarily from online donors, and then spends almost all of that money on itself. Now, a real scam pack spends all of the money on itself. These scammy packs tend to spend a little bit of money on the candidates and campaigns that they say they're supporting, but the vast majority of money they do spend is on their own services and on their own officers. You may have noticed in the last couple of weeks you've been getting a ton of solicitations from generic sounding groups like Democratic Victory, Democrats United, Democratic Power, all claiming to be helping Kamala Harris defeat Donald Trump. Well, those groups kind of fall into that scammy pack definition. I was getting a ton of these text messages over the past couple days, got to the point where I was so frustrated that I decided I'm going to look into what's actually going on here. And what I found genuinely was shocking. My latest piece explores one of these groups. It's called Democratic Victory PAC. Basically, it's a generic sounding political action committee with almost no visible ties online to anything that remotely resembles Democratic Party infrastructure. In fact, they have very little ties or elements of transparency online at all. It's almost impossible to know who is running this entity. But I went digging and I found out some really interesting stuff. So it turns out that Democratic Victory is one of a group of political action committees that is run by a legitimate firm called Paction. Now, what's Paction? Paction's a data firm, and by that I mean it collects emails and phone numbers of prospective donors, and it then sells that information to campaigns and members of Congress and campaign committees. In fact, the Biden-Harris Victory Fund has used Paction to help raise money. Well, it turns out Paction has what is pretty much a side hustle. The person who runs it, a guy named Ryan Morgan, set up these political action committees like Democratic Victory, and then Democratic Victory uses data from Paction to raise boatloads of money. But here's where it gets interesting. After they raise that money, they spend it not on candidates or campaigns, they spend it on different things related to Ryan Morgan. So, among other things, Democratic Victory has spent $1.8 million or more on the services of Paction. But in the course of my reporting, it got even crazier. So, in addition to the money it spends on Paction, Democratic Victory also spent $284,000 on a consulting firm called Penn Avenue Consulting. Well, it turns out there's very little data online about what Penn Avenue Consulting is. In fact, if you go to their website, there's really nothing at all. But I discovered that it's connected to a guy named Stephen Jewett, who happens to be a Democratic operative who, it should be noted, works for Democratic Victory, another instance in which an officer for Democratic Victory was benefiting from the fundraising money that Democratic Victory made. And it doesn't even end there. Back in May, a group popped up in Virginia. It was called Virginia is for Voters. Now, no one really knows what this group is or why it was started. It ostensibly is to help Democrats in the Commonwealth. But here's where it gets interesting. About a month after it started, it got a $100,000 donation from, you guessed it, Democratic Victory. So we went looking into what was going on here, and it turns out the people who started Virginia is for Voters are Ryan Morgan and Stephen Jewett. Once again, Democratic Victory is raising a lot of money from prospective donors, people who don't really understand what Democratic Victory is for, but they're getting all these solicitations. Democratic Victory is then taking that money and spending it on other entities that are directly tied to the officers who run Democratic Victory. And that's just the business stuff. There is the personal stuff, which is even crazier. We went digging through federal election communications reports, and we discovered some pretty remarkable things. For instance, Democratic Victory spent $736,000 for event space rental for the Formula One Grand Prix in Las Vegas in November of 2023. On top of that, it paid a firm $40,000 just to help put together that event, which it called a VIP private viewing suite. And it paid hundreds of thousands of dollars more in hotel fees in and around Las Vegas in and around the time of that event. The most remarkable thing, public pictures posted online have Ryan Morgan and his wife attending that event. So in other words, Democratic Victory takes their donor money, puts together this lavish event in Las Vegas, and on top of that, The chief officer at Democratic Victory attends the event. I could go on from here. For instance, the group spent $116,000 at the Vegas Waldorf Astoria, $20,000 to the Ritz-Carlton in New Orleans, almost $20,000 to a posh Palm Beach resort in Florida. In each of those cases, Ryan Morgan and or his family was pictured at those hotels in and around the time of the reported purchase. Beyond that, Democratic Victory spent nearly $6,000 on chauffeur services and made 2 transactions to Ticketmaster totaling $71,000. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite figure out what those tickets were for. Now, here's the remarkable part. None of this is illegal. There are very few rules around what a political action committee can do with its money. It does have to spend some of it on candidates and causes it claims to support. And that's where groups do get in trouble. For instance, there have been prosecutions on legitimate scam packs because they spend virtually nothing, actually nothing at all, on political exercises that they claim to be backing. In this case, Democratic Victory did spend some of its money on actual candidates and causes. For instance, it donated to the Biden campaign a substantial amount, $185,000 to the Biden Victory Fund. It gave $250,000 to Future Forward, the super PAC that is supporting the Biden campaign. And at that Grand Prix event, it gave an in-kind contributions of up to $300,000 or more for Democratic entities that attended that event and rented space from them. But all told, it's a small portion of the millions of dollars that the group raised and significantly less money than what they spent on the entities tied to their officers or the lavish travel habits that those officers partook in. So what does Morgan say about this? Well, unfortunately, he did not return my repeated requests for calls, but I did talk to him for a prior piece, and he made the point that, look, Paction provides a service. That service is integral to Democratic politics. It helps Democrats raise money. He also suggested that these entities that he has set up, Democratic Victory, Democrats United, Democratic Power, are actually helping raise money for Democrats and then transferring that money to entities like the Biden campaign. And therefore, they are useful cogs in the Democratic Party machinery. Others don't see it that way. They think that these groups are cannibalizing voter ID lists, that they are taking needed money away from campaigns and campaign committees, and that they're spending it on personal use at best and kind of misleading donors at worst. I talked to one person who is in the field about these practices and showed him all these numbers. And this is what he said. Josh Nelson, CEO of Civic Shout. He said, scammers and grifters have been engaging in these kinds of practices for years, but the examples here are some of the most egregious and brazen I've ever heard. So look, be on the lookout for those texts and emails. Be sure to check where the money is going. Be sure to check if the group is legitimate. And be sure to read the Bulwark so you can get more information like this.